When Michael Jordan opened a mysterious letter in his office one cold morning in 1995, he had no idea it would change his life forever. The envelope had no return address, just his name, written in beautiful handwriting. Inside was a message that made his blood run cold. The truth about what happened to your father isn't what you think. Michael's father, James Jordan, had been murdered 2 years earlier. The police said it was a random robbery. 2 men were caught and sent to prison. Case closed. But this letter claimed everything was a lie. It said there were secrets buried with his father, secrets that powerful people wanted to stay hidden forever. The letter ended with a chilling warning: meet me where it all began, or live with the lies forever. Michael stared at those words, his hands shaking. Who sent this? What did they know? And most terrifying of all, what if they were telling the truth? What Michael discovered next was more shocking than anyone could imagine. A conspiracy so big, so dangerous that it had already claimed 8 innocent lives. His father wasn't a random victim. He was targeted, hunted, murdered for doing the right thing. But by who and why? The answers would lead Michael on a dangerous journey across 3 states. He would meet a dying detective who had been hiding for years. He would uncover evidence the police had missed. He would discover that his father died a hero, not a victim. And he would learn that some people will kill to keep their secrets buried. This is the true story of how one mysterious letter exposed a massive conspiracy, how a son fought to get justice for his father, and how the sender of that letter remained unknown until the very end. Watch this entire video to discover who sent the mysterious letter to Michael Jordan and why the truth about his father's death was hidden for so long, because what you're about to learn will shock you. The Chicago wind rattled the windows of Michael Jordan's office on that gray November morning in 1995. He sat behind his enormous wooden desk, staring at the city below. Cars moved like tiny ants through the streets. People rushed to work, bundled in thick coats against the cold. Michael rubbed his tired eyes. He had barely slept last night. Basketball practice ran late, and then he spent hours reviewing business contracts. Being Michael Jordan meant everyone wanted something from him: his time, his money, his signature on a piece of paper. Mr. Jordan, his assistant, Patricia, knocked softly on the door. She was a kind woman in her 50s who had worked for him for 3 years. Your morning mail is here. Just leave it on the desk, Patricia. Thank you. Michael didn't look up. He was studying the statistics from last night's game. The Bulls had won, but he felt like something was missing. Ever since his father died 2 years ago, nothing felt quite right. Patricia set down a stack of envelopes and magazines. Most days, Michael received hundreds of letters. Fan mail from kids asking for autographs, business proposals from people who wanted him to invest in their companies, invitations to fancy parties and charity events. He reached for the pile without much interest. Bills, a magazine with his face on the cover, more fan letters. Then his hand stopped. One envelope felt different. It was made of thick cream-colored paper, the expensive kind. His name was written across the front in beautiful handwriting, the letters flowing like water, but there was no return address. No stamp. Someone had delivered this by hand. Michael's heart began to beat faster. Something about this envelope made his stomach feel tight. He picked it up slowly, turning it over in his large hands. The paper was smooth and cold. For a moment, he considered throwing it away. Strange letters sometimes came from crazy people who thought they knew him, but curiosity won. He slid his finger under the sealed flap and tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper folded neatly in half. Michael unfolded it and began to read. Dear Michael, you don't know me, but I know you. More importantly, I knew your father. The truth about what happened to James Jordan isn't what you think. I know what really occurred that night in July 1993. I know the secrets that were buried with him. I know why he died. You've been lied to, Michael. The men in prison didn't act alone. There's so much more to the story, things the police never found, things that powerful people wanted to stay hidden. If you want to know the truth about your father's death, meet me where it all began. You'll know the place when you think about it. Come alone. Trust no one. The clock is ticking. Some truths can't stay buried forever. There was no signature, no name, nothing to tell him who had written these terrible words. Michael's hands began to shake. The letter fell from his fingers and floated down to the desk like a dead leaf. His mouth felt dry. His chest grew tight, making it hard to breathe. James Jordan, his father, his hero, the man who taught him to shoot baskets in the driveway when he was 6 years old. The man who drove him to practice at 5 in the morning every morning, never complaining. The man who believed in him when nobody else did. His father had been murdered during a robbery on July 23, 1993. He had pulled over to rest on the side of a highway in North Carolina. 2 men shot him and stole his car. The police caught them. They went to prison. Case closed. That's what everyone said. That's what Michael had believed for 2 years. But now, this letter claimed it was all a lie. Michael stood up so fast that his chair rolled backward and hit the wall. He walked to the window, pressing his forehead against the cold glass. The city looked blurry through his tears. He hadn't cried since the funeral. He had taught himself to be strong, to push the pain down deep where nobody could see it. Who could have sent this? What did they know? And the most frightening question of all, what if they were telling the truth? Michael picked up the phone to call the police, but then he stopped. The letter said to trust no one. What if the person who sent it was watching? What if telling the police put someone in danger, or put Michael himself in danger? He looked at the envelope again, studying the handwriting. It was neat and careful, written by someone who took their time. This wasn't some random prank. Whoever sent this knew personal things about his father's death. Michael grabbed the letter and locked it in his desk drawer. His hand still trembled as he turned the key. Everything had changed in the last 5 minutes. The world he thought he understood had cracked wide open. Somewhere out there, someone knew the truth about the worst day of his life, and Michael Jordan was going to find them, no matter what it cost. Michael couldn't focus on anything for the rest of the day. He sat through 2 meetings without hearing a single word anyone said. His business partners talked about shoe deals and endorsements, but their voices sounded like buzzing insects. All he could think about was the letter locked in his drawer. The truth about what happened to James Jordan isn't what you think. Those words haunted him like a ghost. When everyone finally left his office, Michael pulled out the letter again. He read it 5 times, then 10 times, studying every word. Who knew enough about his father's death to write something like this? Who would wait 2 years to tell him? He picked up his phone and dialed his mother's number in North Carolina. His fingers felt clumsy on the buttons. Hello. His mother Dolores's warm voice filled his ear. Just hearing it made his throat tight. Hey, Mom, it's me. Michael, what a wonderful surprise. I was just thinking about you. He could hear the smile in her voice. How was your game last night? We won. Michael forced himself to sound normal, even though his heart was pounding. Mom, I wanted to ask you something about Dad. There was a pause. When his mother spoke again, her voice had changed. It was softer, sadder. What is it, sweetheart? Michael didn't know how to ask without worrying her. Did Dad ever mention meeting anyone strange before it happened? Anyone who seemed suspicious or made him uncomfortable? Why are you asking about this now, Michael? His mother's concern came through the phone. You've been doing so well. I don't want you going back to that dark place. I'm fine, Mom, I promise. I was thinking about him today, missing him. That wasn't a lie. He missed his father every single day. The pain never went away. It just learned to hide better. Your father talked to everyone, Dolores said quietly. You know how friendly he was. He could start a conversation with a brick wall and make it laugh. Michael smiled despite his fear. That was true. James Jordan had never met a stranger. He treated the mailman the same way he treated millionaires, with respect and kindness. Did he seem worried about anything before his trip, like something was bothering him? His mother was silent for a long moment. Michael could hear her breathing. Actually, yes, now that you mention it, he did seem distracted those last few weeks. I asked him about it, but he said it was nothing. He said he was just tired. Michael's grip tightened on the phone. Did he get any strange phone calls? Any letters? Michael, what's going on? You're scaring me. Nothing, Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. I just miss him sometimes, that's all. They talked for a few more minutes about safer things, his siblings, her garden, the weather. But when Michael hung up, he felt worse than before. His mother had noticed something wrong with his father before he died. She just didn't know what it meant. Michael leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. Memories flooded through him like a river breaking through a dam. He remembered being 7 years old, standing in the driveway with a basketball that was almost as big as he was. His father stood in front of him, patient and encouraging. Keep your elbow in, son. Eye on the rim, that's it. Now shoot. Michael had missed that shot. He missed the next 20 shots too. But his father never got frustrated. He just kept passing the ball back, kept believing. Champions aren't made when things are easy, his father had said. Champions are made when you keep trying after you fail. Remember that, Michael. Never give up. Those words had carried Michael through his entire life. When other players were bigger and stronger, he worked harder. When people said he couldn't do something, he proved them wrong. His father's voice was always there in his head, pushing him forward. Michael remembered the last time he saw his father alive. It was July 1993. His father had come to watch him play in a golf tournament. They had laughed together, talked about everything and nothing. His father had seemed happy and healthy and strong. "I'm so proud of you, son," James had said, hugging him tight. "Not because you're famous. I'm proud of the man you've become." Those were the last words his father spoke to him. 3 days later, Michael got the phone call that destroyed his world. His father was dead, murdered by criminals on a lonely highway. They shot him while he slept in his car. They stole his vehicle and his championship rings and left him there like he was nothing. Michael had fallen apart. The strongest man in basketball crumbled like paper. He couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't think straight. The guilt ate at him like acid. Why wasn't he there? Why couldn't he protect his father? Why did bad things happen to good people? The funeral was the worst day of Michael's life. He stood beside the casket, wearing dark sunglasses to hide his tears, and felt like his heart had been ripped out of his chest. Hundreds of people came to pay respects. Everyone said kind words about James Jordan, but none of it brought him back. 4 months after the funeral, Michael quit basketball. Everyone was shocked. He was at the top of his career, the greatest player in the world, but he couldn't play anymore. Basketball reminded him too much of his father, all those early morning practices, all those games his father attended, all those dreams they shared. Instead, Michael tried to play baseball. It was his father's favorite sport. James had always wanted Michael to be a baseball player. So Michael thought if he played baseball, he could honor his father's memory. He could make his father proud from heaven. But baseball was hard. Michael wasn't naturally good at it like he was at basketball. He struggled. He failed. The press made fun of him. People said he was wasting his talent, throwing away his legacy. Michael didn't care. He was trying to feel close to his father again. He was trying to fill the giant hole in his heart. Eventually, he came back to basketball. He realized his father would want him to do what made him happy. His father always said, "Be the best version of yourself, not the best version of what others want you to be." Now sitting in his office with this mysterious letter, Michael wondered if he had ever really understood what happened to his father. The police said it was a random robbery. 2 criminals saw an expensive car and decided to steal it. Wrong place, wrong time, just bad luck. But what if it wasn't random? What if someone had targeted his father specifically? What if there was a reason, a terrible reason, that James Jordan died that night? Michael stood up and walked to the window again. The sun was setting over Chicago, painting the sky orange and purple. Somewhere in this big world, someone knew the truth. Someone had sent him that letter. Meet me where it all began. Where it all began. What did that mean? Where his father died, where Michael was born, where he first picked up a basketball. Michael's phone rang, making him jump. He grabbed it quickly. "Hello." "Michael, it's Patricia. I'm heading home now. Do you need anything before I leave?" "Patricia, wait. The mail this morning, do you remember who delivered it?" "The regular mailman brought most of it. Why?" "Was there anyone else? Someone who dropped off a letter personally?" Patricia thought for a moment. "Actually, yes, there was a courier service. A young man in a uniform dropped off one envelope. He said it was urgent and had to be delivered to you personally. I signed for it." Michael's heart raced. What company? What did the uniform look like? "I don't remember the company name. It was blue, I think. The young man had dark hair, very polite. Is something wrong, Mr. Jordan?" "No, everything's fine. Thank you, Patricia. Have a good evening." Michael hung up and stared at the letter on his desk. Someone had paid a courier to deliver it. That meant they didn't want to risk being seen. They were being careful, smart. But they also wanted Michael to know the truth badly enough to take the risk of contacting him. Michael made a decision. He couldn't ignore this. He couldn't pretend he never received the letter. His father deserved better than that. If there was even a small chance that the letter was telling the truth, that his father's death was more than just a random crime, then Michael had to find out. He owed his father that much. He owed himself that much too. Michael locked the letter back in his drawer and grabbed his coat. Tomorrow, he would start looking for answers. He would find out who sent this letter and what they knew. Tonight, he would go home and try to sleep, even though he knew the nightmares would come. They always did when he thought too much about his father. As Michael walked out of his office into the cold November night, he whispered into the darkness, "I'm going to find the truth, Dad. I promise. No matter what it costs me." The wind carried his words away, but somewhere, somehow, Michael believed his father heard them. And somewhere in the shadows, the person who sent the letter was watching, waiting to see if Michael Jordan was brave enough to face what he would find. Michael didn't sleep that night. He lay in his bed, staring at the ceiling, watching shadows dance across the walls. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw his father's face. Every time he started to drift off, he heard those words from the letter. The truth about what happened to James Jordan isn't what you think. When the sun finally came up, Michael was already dressed and sitting at his kitchen table with a cup of coffee. He had made a decision. He couldn't do this alone. He needed help from someone who knew how to find answers, someone who investigated mysteries for a living. He needed a private investigator. Michael spent the morning making quiet phone calls. He didn't want the media to find out. If reporters learned that Michael Jordan was investigating his father's death, they would swarm like bees. They would ask questions, dig around, and possibly scare away whoever sent the letter. Finally, someone gave him a name, Elena Martinez. "She's the best," his contact said. "Former FBI agent. She specializes in cold cases. If anyone can help you, it's Elena." Michael called the number he was given. A woman answered on the second ring. Her voice was strong and businesslike. "Martinez Investigations. How can I help you?" "Ms. Martinez, my name is Michael Jordan. I need your help with something private and urgent." There was a brief pause. "The Michael Jordan." "Yes, ma'am." "What kind of help do you need, Mr. Jordan?" "I'd rather discuss it in person. Can we meet today?" Another pause. "I can see you at 2 o'clock. My office is downtown. I'll text you the address." "Thank you, and Ms. Martinez, please don't tell anyone I'm coming." "Mr. Jordan, everything my clients tell me stays private. That's how I do business." At exactly 2 o'clock, Michael walked into a small office building on the west side of Chicago. Elena Martinez's office was on the 3rd floor. The door had her name painted on the glass in simple black letters. Michael knocked. "Come in," the voice called. He opened the door and stepped inside. The office was small but organized. File cabinets lined one wall. A large desk sat in the center with 2 chairs facing it. Behind the desk sat Elena Martinez. She was in her 40s with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She wore jeans and a black sweater. Her brown eyes were sharp and intelligent. She stood up and shook Michael's hand firmly. "Mr. Jordan, please sit down." Michael sat, suddenly feeling nervous. He had faced thousands of screaming fans, played in championship games with millions watching, but sitting in this quiet office made his palms sweat. Elena sat back down and folded her hands on her desk. "What brings you here?" Michael reached into his jacket and pulled out the letter. He slid it across the desk. "I received this yesterday." Elena picked up the letter and read it carefully. Her expression didn't change, but Michael saw her eyes move quickly across the words. When she finished, she read it again. "Do you know who sent this?" she asked. "No idea." "Do you know what they're talking about? What truth they think you don't know?" Michael's throat felt tight. "My father was murdered in July 1993. 2 men were arrested and convicted. They said it was a robbery, but this letter claims there's more to the story." Elena studied the letter again, this time examining the paper and the handwriting. "This is expensive stationery. The handwriting is educated, careful. Whoever wrote this took their time. They weren't angry or rushed. They were deliberate. Can you find out who sent it?" Elena looked at him with those sharp eyes. "Mr. Jordan, I need to be honest with you. Sometimes people send letters like this because they want attention or money. Sometimes they're just cruel. Are you prepared to discover that this might be a hoax?" Michael had thought about that all night. "Yes, but I have to know for sure. Even if there's only a small chance it's real, I need to find out." Elena nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll help you. but I need access to everything: police reports, trial transcripts, witness statements, and I'll need to ask you some hard questions about your father. Whatever you need. My fee is $500 a day plus expenses. Money isn't a problem, I just want the truth. Alina stood up and shook his hand again. Then let's get started. Over the next 3 days, Alina worked fast. She had connections everywhere: police departments, courthouses, government offices. She gathered files and documents that Michael had never seen before. On the 4th day, Michael returned to her office. Alina had papers spread across her entire desk. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept much either. "Sit down, Mr. Jordan. We need to talk." Michael sat, his heart pounding. Alina picked up a folder. "I've been reviewing the case files from your father's murder. The official story is that James Jordan pulled over to rest at a highway rest area. 2 men, Daniel Green and Larry Demery, saw his car and decided to rob him. They shot him and dumped his body. Then they stole his car and his belongings." "That's what the police told us," Michael said quietly. "Right, but here's what doesn't make sense." Alina opened the folder and pulled out several papers. 3 witnesses reported seeing your father's car at that rest area, but their statements don't match. One witness said they saw the car at 10:30 at night. Another said 11:15. The third said after midnight. Maybe they just remembered wrong. Maybe, but there's more. Alina pulled out another paper. "The police found your father's body in a swamp 11 days after he was killed, but the autopsy showed something strange. His body had been moved. He wasn't killed where they found him." Michael felt sick. He didn't want to think about his father's body being moved around like garbage. Alina continued, her voice gentle but firm. "There are also reports of phone calls your father received in the weeks before his death. Calls from an unknown number. The police never investigated who made those calls." "Why not?" "Because once they arrested Green and Demery, they stopped looking. They had their suspects. The case was closed. But good investigators don't stop asking questions just because they have an easy answer." Michael stood up and walked to the window. Outside, people walked past on the sidewalk, living their normal lives. None of them knew that his entire world was falling apart. "What are you saying, Alina? That the police missed something?" "I'm saying there are holes in this case big enough to drive a truck through, and someone out there knows it." Michael turned around. "Can you find out who sent the letter?" "I'm working on it. The courier company said someone paid cash for the delivery. They don't have a name, but I'm not giving up." Alina stood and walked over to him. She was much shorter than Michael, but her presence was strong. "Mr. Jordan, I need to ask you something important. If we find out that your father's death wasn't random, if we discover that someone targeted him specifically, are you ready for that? Because once we open this door, we can't close it again." Michael thought about his father's smile, his father's laugh, the way his father believed in him when nobody else did. He thought about all the questions he'd had for 2 years, all the nights he couldn't sleep, all the guilt that ate at him. "I'm ready," he said. "My father deserves the truth, whatever it is." Alina nodded. "Okay, then we keep digging." Michael went home that evening feeling both hopeful and terrified. Alina was finding things the police missed. But what would those things reveal? What truth was hiding in the shadows? 3 days later, Michael's phone rang at 7 in the morning. It was Alina. "Mr. Jordan, you need to come to my office right away. I found something." Michael's hands shook as he grabbed his keys. "What did you find?" "Not over the phone. Just get here as fast as you can." Michael drove through the Chicago streets faster than he should have. His mind raced with possibilities. What had Alina discovered? When he burst into her office, Alina was standing at her desk with a photograph in her hand. Her face was pale. "What is it?" Michael asked breathlessly. Alina handed him the photograph. "This was in your father's case file, but it was labeled as unrelated. The police didn't think it was important." Michael looked at the photograph. It showed his father standing outside a small diner. He was talking to another man, someone tall and thin with a serious face. Michael had never seen this man before. "Who is he?" Michael asked. "I don't know yet, but look at the date on the back." Michael flipped the photograph over. Written in pencil were the words, July 20, 1993. Michael's breath caught in his throat. July 20th was 3 days before his father was murdered. "Where was this taken?" he whispered. Alina pulled out a map. "A small town in North Carolina. According to the case files, your father stopped there during his trip. He had lunch at this diner." Michael stared at the photograph. His father looked serious in the picture, not smiling like he usually did, and the man he was talking to looked troubled, worried. "We need to find out who this man is," Michael said. "Already on it, but Michael," Alina hesitated. "There's something else." She pulled out another paper. It was a record of a phone call. 2 days before your father died, he received a call from a pay phone in that same town. The call lasted 17 minutes. That's a long time to talk to a stranger at a pay phone. Michael felt dizzy. His father had met this mysterious man. They had talked for 17 minutes, and 3 days later his father was dead. "What does it mean?" Michael asked, though he already suspected the answer. Alina's voice was soft but certain. "It means someone was warning your father. Someone knew he was in danger, and we need to find out who that person was and what they were trying to tell him." Michael looked down at the photograph again. His father's face stared back at him, frozen in time, unaware that in just 3 days his life would end. But now Michael knew the truth was out there. Someone had tried to warn his father. Someone knew what was coming, and Michael was going to find them, no matter what it took. Michael couldn't stop staring at the photograph. He sat in Alina's office, holding the picture in his trembling hands. His father looked so alive in this image, so real. Yet Michael knew that just 72 hours after this photo was taken, his father would be gone forever. "We need to go to that town," Michael said firmly. "We need to find out who this man is." Alina nodded. "I was hoping you'd say that. I've already looked up the diner. It's called Harriet's Kitchen. It's still open, still owned by the same family." "When can we leave?" "I can have us on a flight to North Carolina tomorrow morning." Michael shook his head. "No flights. Too many people would recognize me at the airport. We'll drive. We can leave today." Alina raised her eyebrows. "That's a 12-hour drive." "I don't care. Every minute we wait is another minute that whoever sent that letter might disappear, or whoever this man is might be in danger too." Alina studied Michael's face and saw the determination there. "Okay, give me 2 hours to pack a bag and grab some equipment. I'll meet you at your place." 2 hours later, Alina pulled up in front of Michael's house in a dark blue SUV. Michael was already waiting outside with a small suitcase. He wore a baseball cap pulled low over his face and sunglasses, trying to look less recognizable. They drove south out of Chicago in silence for the first hour. Michael watched the city fade away behind them, replaced by farmland and small towns. His mind kept returning to that photograph, to his father's serious expression, to the mysterious man beside him. Finally, Alina spoke. "Tell me about your father. What kind of man was he?" Michael was quiet for a moment. Talking about his father was still painful, even after 2 years. "He was the best man I've ever known. He worked hard his whole life. He loved my mother completely. He believed in doing the right thing, even when it was difficult." "Was he the kind of person who would help a stranger?" "Always," Michael said without hesitation. "If someone needed help, Dad would be the first one there. He couldn't walk past someone in trouble without stopping." Alina nodded thoughtfully. "That's important, because I think that's what happened. I think this man in the photograph needed help and your father gave it to him." "But help with what?" "That's what we need to find out." They drove through Illinois, then Indiana, then Kentucky. The sun set behind them, painting the sky red and gold. Michael barely noticed. His thoughts were miles away, traveling back through time to that summer day in 1993 when his father stopped at a small diner and met a stranger. Around midnight, they stopped at a motel to sleep for a few hours. Michael lay in the dark room, listening to trucks rumble past on the highway. He wondered if his father had stayed in a place like this on his last trip. Had he been scared? Had he known something was wrong? Before dawn, they were back on the road. Michael drove while Alina slept in the passenger seat. The highway was empty and dark, lit only by his headlights. It felt like they were the only people in the world. As the sun rose over the North Carolina hills, Alina woke up. "How much farther?" "About an hour. I saw a sign a few miles back." They arrived in the small town just after 8 in the morning. It was the kind of place where everybody knew everybody. Main Street had one stoplight, a hardware store, a post office, and Harriet's kitchen, a small diner with faded red paint and a gravel parking lot. Michael parked the SUV and stared at the building. His father had walked through that door. His father had sat at one of those tables. The thought made Michael's chest tight. "You ready?" Alina asked gently. "Yeah, let's go." They walked across the parking lot and pushed open the diner's door. A small bell rang above their heads. Inside, the diner was cozy and old-fashioned. Red vinyl booths lined the walls. A long counter with spinning stools faced the kitchen. The smell of bacon and coffee filled the air. An elderly woman stood behind the counter pouring coffee for a customer. She had white hair and kind eyes behind thick glasses. She looked up when they entered. "Good morning. Sit anywhere you like, honey." Michael and Alina slid into a booth near the window. The elderly woman came over with 2 menus and a warm smile. "I'm Harriet Thompson. Welcome to my place. Can I start you folks with some coffee?" "Yes, please," Alina said. "Are you the owner?" "Owner, manager, head cook, and dishwasher," Harriet laughed. "Been running this place for 43 years. Where are you folks from?" "Chicago," Michael said quietly, keeping his head down. He didn't want to be recognized yet. Harriet poured their coffee. "Long way from home. What brings you to our little town?" Alina pulled out the photograph and set it on the table. "Mrs. Thompson, we're hoping you can help us. Do you recognize the people in this picture?" Harriet picked up the photograph and squinted at it. Her smile faded. "Oh my goodness. Yes, I remember this. It must have been summer of 1993. I remember because..." She stopped suddenly and looked at Michael more closely. Her eyes went wide. "Wait a minute, are you Michael Jordan?" Michael took off his sunglasses. "Yes, ma'am." Harriet's hand went to her mouth. "Oh, sweet Lord. This man in the picture, this is your father, isn't it? James Jordan. He was such a kind man. I was so sorry to hear what happened to him." Michael's voice was thick with emotion. "Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. I need to know about that day. Do you remember it?" Harriet sat down in the booth beside Alina. Her face had gone pale. "I remember it like it was yesterday. Your father came in around lunchtime. He ordered a burger and sweet tea. He was so polite, so friendly. He talked to everyone, made jokes with the other customers." "What about the other man in the photo?" Alina asked. "The one he was talking to?" Harriet frowned, thinking hard. "That man came in maybe 20 minutes after your father. At first they didn't seem to know each other, but then something strange happened. The man walked right up to your father's table and said something. I couldn't hear what, but your father's face changed. He looked shocked." Michael leaned forward. "Shocked how? Like he was scared?" "No, not scared, more like surprised and concerned. Like the man had told him something important, something serious." "What did they do then?" "They talked for a long time, maybe 2 hours. The man kept his voice low, and your father listened very carefully. I remember thinking it looked like a serious conversation, not like old friends catching up." Alina pulled out a notebook. "Can you describe the other man?" "He was tall and thin. He had dark hair with some gray in it, and he had a scar right here." Harriet touched her left eyebrow, "like an old cut that had healed." Michael and Alina exchanged glances. That was a good description, something they could use. "Did you hear any of their conversation?" Alina asked. Harriet shook her head. "Not much, but at one point your father's voice got a little louder. He said something like, 'Are you sure?' And the other man nodded very seriously and said, 'I wouldn't tell you if I wasn't certain.'" Michael's heart was pounding. "Did my father seem upset when he left?" "He seemed troubled, worried. Before he left, he came up to the counter to pay. I told him the meal was on the house. It's not every day we get someone famous in here." He smiled and thanked me, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. He asked me if there was a motel nearby. "A motel?" Alina asked. "Yes, I told him about the Pine View Motel just down the road. He thanked me and left. The other man stayed a bit longer, then left separately. I never saw either of them again." Harriet's eyes filled with tears. 3 days later, I saw on the news that James Jordan had been killed. I couldn't believe it, such a terrible thing." Michael had to look away. He stared out the window, blinking back tears. Alina put her hand on his arm, then turned back to Harriet. Mrs. Thompson, this is very important. Do you know who the other man was? Did he pay with a credit card? Did anyone else talk to him? He paid with cash. I'm sorry, honey. I never got his name. Alina nodded and wrote something in her notebook. Thank you. You've been very helpful. They finished their coffee and left the diner. Michael felt like his legs might give out. Every piece of information they found raised 10 more questions. The motel, Alina said as they got back in the SUV. Let's check the motel. They drove 2 miles down the road to the Pine View Motel. It was a small, run-down place with about 15 rooms. The office was cramped and smelled like old carpet. A man in his 60s sat behind the desk, reading a newspaper. He looked up when they entered. Help you? Alina smiled. Hi, we're looking for some information about a guest who stayed here in July 1993. The man scratched his beard. That's a long time ago. It's very important. Do you keep old guest records? We keep everything. Owner's orders. You'd be amazed what people claim they left behind years later. He shuffled to a back room and returned with a dusty ledger book. July 1993, you said. Yes, around July 20th. The man flipped through the pages. Here we go, July 1993. He ran his finger down the entries. Lots of folks came through that week. He stopped. His finger had landed on a name. What is it? Michael asked. The man turned the ledger around so they could see. There, in his father's handwriting, was an entry, James Jordan, room 12. And right below it, in different handwriting, Vincent Caldwell, room 13. Vincent Caldwell. They finally had a name. Michael stared at those words. The mysterious man had stayed in the room right next to his father. They had talked at the diner and then they had stayed next door to each other. This wasn't a chance meeting, this was planned. Thank you, Alina said to the motel manager. She took a photo of the ledger page with her phone. Back in the SUV, they sat in silence for a moment. Michael's mind was racing. Vincent Caldwell, he said quietly. Who are you? And what did you tell my father? Alina was already typing on her laptop. Give me a few minutes. If Vincent Caldwell exists, I'll find him. Michael watched her work, his heart full of hope and fear. They were getting closer to the truth. He could feel it. But the truth he was starting to realize might be more complicated and more dangerous than he ever imagined. Alina's fingers flew across her laptop keyboard. Michael watched her face, looking for any sign of what she was finding. Her expression changed from focused to surprised to deeply concerned. What is it? Michael asked. Did you find him? Alina turned the laptop toward him. On the screen was an old newspaper article from 1992. The headline read, Detective forced to resign after controversial investigation. Michael leaned closer and read the article. Vincent Caldwell had been a police detective in Memphis, Tennessee. He had worked on a major case involving a pharmaceutical company accused of hiding dangerous side effects of a popular medication. The article said Vincent had gathered evidence against the company, but suddenly the investigation was shut down. Shortly after, Vincent was forced to resign. The article didn't say why. A pharmaceutical company. Michael looked at Alina, confused. What does that have to do with my father? I don't know yet, but look at the date. He was forced out in October 1992. That's 9 months before he met your father. Alina kept searching. She found more articles, all saying the same thing. Vincent Caldwell had been a decorated detective with an excellent record. Then overnight, his career was destroyed. No one would say exactly what happened. It was like someone had erased him. He disappeared after he resigned, Alina said. No address, no phone number, nothing. It's like he went into hiding. Can you find out where he is now? I'm trying, but someone who doesn't want to be found can be very hard to track. Alina kept typing, her face lit by the laptop screen. Michael stood up and paced the small motel parking lot. The morning sun was getting higher, making everything too bright. He put his sunglasses back on, but they didn't help the thoughts racing through his mind. Why would a detective investigating a pharmaceutical company contact his father? What connection could there possibly be? Michael, get back in the car. Alina's voice was sharp and urgent. Michael quickly got back in the SUV. What's wrong? I found a property record. Vincent Caldwell owns a cabin in rural Tennessee, about 3 hours from here. The property is under a different name, but I cross-referenced his old employment records. It's him. Michael's heart raced. Let's go. They drove east through the mountains of North Carolina and into Tennessee. The roads got narrower and more winding. Houses became fewer and farther apart. They were heading deep into the countryside, far from any city. Around 2 in the afternoon, Alina turned onto a dirt road barely visible from the highway. Trees pressed in on both sides. The SUV bounced over rocks and potholes. "Are you sure this is right?" Michael asked, gripping the door handle. According to the GPS, the cabin should be another mile ahead. They drove slowly through the forest. Finally, they saw it, a small wooden cabin with a sagging porch, half hidden by trees. An old pickup truck sat in the driveway. Alina parked the SUV behind some bushes out of sight from the cabin. "Stay here. Let me check it out first." "No way, I'm coming with you." "Michael, if Vincent is dangerous. If he wanted to hurt me, he wouldn't have sent that letter. He's trying to help. I need to talk to him." They walked quietly toward the cabin. As they got closer, Michael saw that the place looked abandoned. The windows were dirty. Leaves covered the porch, but the truck looked like it had been driven recently. Alina knocked on the door. No answer. She knocked again, harder. "Mr. Caldwell, my name is Alina Martinez. I'm a private investigator. I'm here with Michael Jordan. We need to talk to you about James Jordan." Silence. Alina tried the door handle. It was unlocked. She pushed the door open slowly. "Mr. Caldwell, we're coming in. We just want to talk." They stepped inside. The cabin was small, just one main room with a kitchen area, a couch, and a desk. Papers were scattered everywhere. The place smelled like old coffee and dust, but no one was there. Michael walked to the desk. Papers covered every inch of it, newspaper clippings, printed articles, handwritten notes. He picked up one of the clippings. It was about him, about a basketball game he'd played last month. "Alina, look at this." Alina came over. Together, they looked through the papers. There were dozens of articles about Michael, his games, his career, his retirement from basketball, his return. There were also articles about his father's murder, printed and marked with highlighter, but most disturbing were the photographs. Someone had taken pictures of Michael from a distance, leaving his office, getting in his car, walking into his house. Michael felt his skin crawl. Vincent had been watching him. "He's been tracking you," Alina said quietly. "For months, maybe longer." Michael picked up a leather journal from the desk. His hands shook as he opened it. The handwriting inside was neat and careful, the same handwriting from the letter. He began to read aloud. "September 15, 1995. I saw Michael Jordan play tonight. He doesn't know me, doesn't know what his father did for so many people. He doesn't know that James Jordan died a hero, not a random victim. I want to tell him, but how? How do I explain something so big, so terrible? How do I tell him that his father was murdered because he refused to stay silent?" Michael's voice broke. He had to stop reading. Alina gently took the journal from him and continued reading silently, flipping through the pages. Her face grew more serious with each page. "Michael, listen to this entry from October. They're still looking for me. I saw one of Brennan's men in town yesterday. They know I'm alive, and they know I'm the only one who can prove what they did. I thought I could hide forever, but I can't. James Jordan died because of me, because I asked him to help. The guilt is eating me alive. His son deserves to know the truth." "Who's Brennan?" Michael asked. Alina kept reading. "Here, Richard Brennan, vice president of Meridian Pharmaceuticals. He orchestrated everything. The cover-up, the threats, the murders. He's untouchable because he has judges and politicians in his pocket. But James Jordan stood up to him. James was on the jury that convicted Meridian, and for that they killed him." Michael felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. "A jury? My father was on a jury." Alina was already typing on her phone. "Let me check. Yes, here it is. In 1991, James Jordan served on a jury for a major trial. Meridian Pharmaceuticals was accused of hiding test results that showed their diabetes medication caused heart attacks. Dozens of people died. The jury found them guilty. The company was fined millions of dollars." Michael sank into a chair. His mind was spinning. His father had served on a jury. He had voted to punish a bad company, and they had killed him for it. "Alina, how many other jurors?" Alina was already searching. Her face went pale. "Michael, out of 12 jurors from that trial, 8 are dead, all within 3 years of the verdict. Car accidents, house fires, heart attacks. The police ruled them all as accidents or natural causes. But they weren't accidents. No, they were murders made to look like accidents. Your father was number 9. Michael stood up, rage boiling inside him. All this time he thought his father died in a random robbery, but it was calculated. It was revenge. Someone had hunted down the jurors one by one and killed them. "Where's Vincent now?" Michael demanded. "Why isn't he here?" Alina walked around the cabin looking for clues. She opened a closet and found clothes hanging inside. She checked the kitchen and found fresh food in the refrigerator. "He's been here recently, within the last day or 2. Michael picked up the journal again and flipped to the last entry. It was dated 3 days ago. "I'm sending the letter tomorrow. Michael needs to know before it's too late. Brennan's men are closing in. I can feel it. They've found me before and they'll find me again. But if I can just tell Michael the truth, if I can give him the evidence, maybe he can finish what James and I started. Maybe he can bring them down. I'm not afraid to die. I'm only afraid of dying before I can make this right." The next page was blank. That was the last thing Vincent had written. "He knew he was in danger," Michael said. "He sent me the letter because he thought they might kill him." Alina walked to the window and looked out. "We should leave. If Vincent thought he was being watched, this place might not be safe." But Michael wasn't listening. He had found something else on the desk, a cardboard box, sealed with tape. On top was an envelope with his name written on it. Michael ripped open the envelope. Inside was a short note. "Michael, if you're reading this, you found my cabin. I'm sorry I couldn't be here to meet you face to face. In this box is everything, all the evidence your father and I gathered, all the proof of what Meridian Pharmaceuticals did. Your father died protecting this information. He died a hero. Take this box. Show it to the right people. Finish what we started. And please forgive me for not being able to save him. Vincent Caldwell." Michael's hands trembled as he picked up the box. It was heavy, full of papers and files. Suddenly, Alina grabbed his arm. "Michael, we need to go now." "What, why?" "Look," Alina pointed out the window. Through the trees, Michael could see a black car slowly driving up the dirt road toward the cabin. "Who is that?" "I don't know, but I'm not waiting to find out. Grab the box, we're leaving." They ran out the back door of the cabin and into the woods. Michael clutched the box against his chest as they pushed through bushes and jumped over logs. Behind them, they heard car doors slam and voices shouting. They made it to the SUV and jumped inside. Alina started the engine and drove fast down the dirt road in the opposite direction from the black car. Michael looked back through the rear window. He saw 2 men in dark suits standing outside the cabin, watching them drive away. His heart pounded. This wasn't just about finding the truth anymore. They were in real danger. "Who were those men?" Michael gasped. Alina's jaw was tight as she drove. "Either they work for Meridian Pharmaceuticals or they're looking for Vincent too. Either way, they're not friendly." Michael looked down at the box in his lap. Inside was evidence that could bring down the people who killed his father, but it also made him a target. "Where's Vincent, Alina? Is he alive?" Alina didn't answer. She just kept driving, her eyes checking the rearview mirror every few seconds. And somewhere, hidden in the shadows, Vincent Caldwell was either running for his life or already dead, having given his last chance at justice to the son of the man he couldn't save. Alina drove for 2 hours without stopping. She took back roads and changed directions several times to make sure no one was following them. Michael sat in the passenger seat with the box on his lap, staring out the window but not really seeing anything. His father had died because he did the right thing, because he served on a jury and voted to punish a company that killed people. It seemed impossible, like something from a movie, but the evidence was right here in this box. Finally, Alina pulled into a small motel on the outskirts of Knoxville. "We'll stay here tonight. It's safe. We paid cash, used fake names. No one can track us." They got a room on the 2nd floor. Alina locked the door, closed the curtains, and put a chair under the door handle. Only then did she let herself relax a little. Michael set the box on the bed and just stared at it. "Are you ready to look inside?" Alina asked gently. Michael nodded. His hand shook as he broke the tape seal and opened the box. Inside were folders, each one labeled with a name or date. There were also 3 thick envelopes and a USB drive. They spread everything out on the bed. Alina put on reading glasses and started sorting through the papers while Michael picked up the first folder. The label said, Meridian Trial 1991. Inside were newspaper articles about the trial. Michael read them carefully, learning about his father's case for the first time. Meridian Pharmaceuticals had created a medication called diabenal for people with diabetes. The medicine worked well and made the company billions of dollars. But their own scientists discovered that diabenal caused heart problems in some patients. People were dying. Instead of warning doctors and patients, Meridian hid the test results. They paid scientists to create fake studies saying the medicine was safe. For 3 years, they kept selling diabenal while people died. Finally, a brave scientist named Dr. Sarah Chen went to the police. She brought evidence showing that Meridian knew about the heart problems and covered them up. The company was charged with criminal negligence and fraud. The trial lasted 6 weeks. 12 jurors heard all the evidence. James Jordan was juror number 7. Michael found his father's name on the jury list. Seeing it there made everything feel more real. His father had sat in that courtroom. He had listened to the evidence. He had voted to convict. The jury found Meridian guilty on all charges. The company was fined $75 million and forced to take diabenal off the market. Several executives were supposed to go to prison, but that's where things got strange. Alina held up another folder. Look at this, the appeal. Meridian appealed the verdict. Their lawyers found a technicality, something about how evidence was collected. A higher court threw out the conviction. The executives never went to prison. The company only had to pay a smaller fine. They got away with it, Michael said bitterly. Legally, yes, but they were angry. The trial had damaged their reputation. Their stock price dropped. They blamed the jurors for believing Dr. Chen instead of their fake scientists. Alina pulled out a list of names. These are the 12 jurors from the trial. Let me show you what happened to them. She laid out 12 pieces of paper, each one with a name at the top and information below. Juror number 1, Margaret Hastings, died in a house fire 8 months after the trial. Fire investigators said it was an electrical problem. Juror number 2, Robert Palmer. Car accident 14 months after the trial. His brakes failed on a mountain road. Juror number 3, Jennifer Wu. Heart attack 18 months after the trial. She was only 42 years old and had no history of heart problems. Alina continued down the list. One by one, the jurors had died in ways that seemed like accidents. But when you looked at all of them together, it was too much to be coincidence. Juror number 7, James Jordan, shot and killed 26 months after the trial during what police called a robbery. Michael's throat was so tight he could barely breathe. 8 of the 12 jurors were dead. Only 4 had survived. What about the other 4? He asked. Alina checked her laptop. 2 of them moved out of the country right after the trial. One went to Australia, the other to Canada. They're still alive. And the last 2? One died of cancer last year. That seems to be natural. And the last one? Alina's fingers flew across the keyboard. The last one is a woman named Patricia Morno. She lives in California. She changed her name and has been in hiding for years. Michael stood up and walked to the window. He was careful not to open the curtains, but he could see a slice of the parking lot through a gap. The world outside looked normal, people coming and going, cars driving past, but nothing was normal anymore. Vincent Caldwell was the detective investigating these deaths, wasn't he? Michael said. Yes. He saw the pattern that other police missed. 8 jurors from the same trial, all dead within 3 years. He started digging deeper and found connections between the deaths. Witnesses who saw suspicious people near the victims. Evidence that disappeared from police files. Medical examiners who changed their reports. Alina held up more papers. Vincent traced everything back to a man named Richard Brennan. He was vice president of security for Meridian Pharmaceuticals. His job was to protect the company from threats, and he decided the jurors were threats. So Brennan hired people to kill them. Not directly. He was too smart for that. He used intermediaries, criminals who couldn't be traced back to the company. The 2 men convicted of killing your father, Daniel Green and Larry Demery, they were hired assassins, but they didn't know who was really paying them. Michael turned back from the window. How do you know all this? Alina held up a thick envelope. Because Vincent documented everything. He has witness statements, financial records showing money transfers, recorded phone conversations. It's all here. She pulled papers out of the envelope and spread them on the bed. Michael saw bank statements, photographs of men meeting in parking lots, transcripts of phone calls. Vincent spent 2 years building a case against Brennan and Meridian. He was close to having enough evidence to arrest everyone involved. But then someone inside the police department warned the company. Vincent's files were seized. He was accused of conducting an unauthorized investigation and misusing department resources. They forced him to resign. They destroyed his career to protect a murderer. Yes, Brennan had judges and politicians on his payroll. He made Vincent's evidence disappear, and then he tried to make Vincent disappear too. Alina pulled out a hospital report. 6 months after Vincent resigned, someone tried to kill him. He was shot twice in a parking garage. He survived, but barely. After that, he went into hiding. He's been running ever since. Michael felt sick. This conspiracy was bigger than he'd imagined. It wasn't just about his father. It was about a company that killed people, covered it up, and then murdered the jurors who dared to convict them. Why did Vincent contact my father? Michael asked. When did they meet? Alina found another folder. Vincent was still investigating from hiding. He was trying to warn the surviving jurors that they were in danger. He tracked your father down and met him at that diner in North Carolina. He told him everything about the other jurors, about Brendan, about the conspiracy. What did my father do? According to Vincent's notes, your father wanted to help. He said he couldn't just hide while these people got away with murder. So he and Vincent made a plan. Your father would help gather evidence. He would talk to the other surviving jurors and convince them to come forward together. Alina's voice grew soft. But 3 days later, before they could do anything, Brennan's men found your father and killed him. Michael sat down on the bed. His legs wouldn't hold him anymore. My father was trying to be a hero. He was trying to stop them. Yes, and Vincent has been carrying that guilt ever since. He blamed himself for your father's death. Michael picked up the USB drive. What's on this? I don't know. We'll need a computer to find out. Alina pulled out her laptop and inserted the drive. Several folders appeared on the screen. She clicked on the first one. It was video footage from a security camera. The timestamp showed it was from July 1993, the month Michael's father died. In the video, 2 men sat in a car. One of them was talking on a cell phone. The video had no sound, but you could see the man nodding and writing something down. Alina clicked on a text file in the same folder. It was a transcript of the phone call. Michael read it aloud. The target will be traveling through North Carolina on July 23rd. He'll be alone. Make it look like a robbery. Take the car and anything valuable. Don't leave witnesses. Michael's hands clenched into fists. This was proof. Proof that his father's murder was planned. Proof that it wasn't random. Who made that phone call? He asked. Alina clicked on another file. It was a financial record showing a phone number registered to a company called Sentinel Security Services. That was a front company owned by Meridian Pharmaceuticals, Alina explained. The call was made from their office. And look at this. She pulled up another document showing employee records. The man in the video making the call is named Marcus Webb. He worked directly for Richard Brennan. Michael felt rage burning inside him like fire. These people had planned his father's death. They had talked about him like he was just a problem to solve, not a human being with a family who loved him. We have enough evidence to take them down, Michael said. We can go to the FBI. We can make them pay for what they did. But Alina looked worried. Michael, Vincent tried that. He went to the FBI, the state police, the district attorney. They all turned him away. Brennan has too many people protecting him. Then what do we do? Alina was quiet for a long moment. We need more. We need something so big, so undeniable that they can't ignore it. We need testimony from someone on the inside. Someone who worked for Brennan and can confirm everything. How do we find someone like that? I don't know yet, but Vincent must have had a plan. He didn't give you this evidence just to let it sit in a box. Michael looked through the folders again. At the bottom of the box was one more envelope. This one had his name written on the front in Vincent's careful handwriting. Michael opened it. Inside was a letter. Dear Michael, if you're reading this, then you found the truth about your father. I'm sorry I had to tell you this way. I'm sorry for everything. Your father was the bravest man I ever met. When I told him about the danger, he didn't run. He didn't hide. He said, I have a son who's going to change the world. I need to show him what it means to stand up for others, even when it's hard. He died trying to protect people he never met. He died fighting against evil. That's the kind of man James Jordan was. I know you're angry. I know you want justice. So do I, but be careful. Richard Brennan is dangerous. He's killed 11 people that we know of, maybe more. He has money, power, and no conscience. In this box is everything you need to bring him down, but you'll need help. You'll need people you can trust, and you'll need courage. I wish I could be there to help you finish this. But if you're reading this letter, I'm probably dead or running for my life. Either way, it's up to you now. Your father believed in you. He said you were going to do great things, not because you're famous, but because you have his heart. Prove him right, Michael. Finish what we started. With respect and regret, Vincent Caldwell. Michael folded the letter carefully and put it back in the envelope. His eyes were wet, but he didn't cry. There would be time for tears later. Right now, he needed to be strong. We're going to get them, Michael said firmly. I don't care how long it takes or how dangerous it is. These people killed my father. They killed 8 innocent people, and they're going to pay. Alina nodded. Then we need a plan, a good one, because once we start this fight, there's no going back. They stayed up all night going through the evidence, organizing it, understanding every piece. By morning, they had a clear picture of the conspiracy. Meridian Pharmaceuticals had killed people with their bad medicine. When they got caught, they killed the jurors to get revenge. And Richard Brennan had orchestrated everything. Now it was Michael's turn to fight back, for his father, for Vincent, for all the innocent people who had died. The war was just beginning, and Michael Jordan was ready. For the next 3 days, Michael and Alina worked nonstop. They made copies of all the evidence and stored them in different safe places. Alina contacted a few trusted journalist friends who might help expose the story, but Michael couldn't shake one thought from his mind. Vincent Caldwell was still out there somewhere. Alive or dead, Michael needed to know. We have to find him, Michael said on the 4th morning. They were eating breakfast in a different motel, constantly moving to stay safe. Michael, Vincent could be anywhere. He's been hiding for years. He knows how to disappear. But he sent me that letter. He wanted me to know the truth. Maybe he wants to meet me. Maybe he's waiting to see if I'd actually come looking. Alina set down her coffee cup. Or maybe he's already dead, and those men at the cabin got to him first. Michael shook his head. No, I don't believe that. Something tells me he's still alive. He's survived this long. He's not giving up now. That afternoon, Michael received another letter. It came to his business office in Chicago. Patricia, his assistant, called him right away. Mr. Jordan, another strange envelope came for you. Same expensive paper, same handwriting. Should I open it? No, Michael said quickly. Don't open it. Don't tell anyone about it. Can you overnight it to me? Of course. Where are you? Michael gave her the address of a post office in Nashville. The next day, he picked up the envelope. His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside was a short message. Michael, you found the cabin. You have the evidence. Now you need to decide, will you use it, or will fear stop you like it stopped so many others? If you're truly your father's son, meet me where it all began. Midnight tonight. Come alone. This is your only chance. VC. Michael read the note 3 times. Where it all began. He said that in the first letter too. Alina looked over his shoulder. What do you think it means? Michael closed his eyes and thought. Where did it all begin? The trial was in Memphis. His father's murder was in North Carolina. Vincent's investigation started in Memphis too. Then it hit him. The diner. That's where my father first learned the truth. That's where Vincent told him everything. It all began at Harriet's kitchen. Alina checked her watch. That's 3 hours from here. We can make it by midnight if we leave now. The letter says come alone. I don't care what the letter says. I'm not letting you walk into a trap by yourself. They drove back to North Carolina as the sun set behind them. Michael's heart pounded the entire way. He was finally going to meet Vincent Caldwell, the man who tried to save his father. the man who carried the truth for all these years. They arrived in the small town at 11:30. Harriet's kitchen was closed and dark. The parking lot was empty except for one old pickup truck parked in the shadows. "That's Vincent's truck," Elena said. "The same one we saw at the cabin." Michael started to open his door, but Elena grabbed his arm. "Wait, let me look around first, make sure it's safe." She got out and walked around the building, checking the windows and doors. After 5 minutes, she came back. "It looks clear, but stay alert. Keep your phone in your hand. If anything feels wrong, run." Michael nodded. He walked across the parking lot toward the diner. The only light came from a street lamp at the corner. His footsteps crunched on the gravel, sounding too loud in the quiet night. As he got closer to the door, it opened. A figure stepped out from the darkness. Michael stopped walking. His breath caught in his throat. The man was tall and thin, just like Harriet had described. He had gray hair and a tired face. And above his left eye was a scar, a thin white line that looked like it had been there for many years. "Hello, Michael," the man said quietly. "I'm Vincent Caldwell." They stood there for a moment, just looking at each other. Michael didn't know what to say. This man had known his father. This man had tried to save him. "Thank you for coming," Vincent continued. His voice was rough, like he didn't use it much. "I wasn't sure you would." "Why did you wait so long?" Michael's voice came out angry. "My father died 2 years ago. You could have told me the truth back then." Vincent's face filled with pain. "I wanted to. Every single day I wanted to tell you, but I was afraid. Afraid that Brennan would kill you too if you knew the truth. Afraid that I'd put another Jordan family member in danger. So why tell me now?" Vincent was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "Because I'm dying, Michael. I have cancer. The doctors say I have maybe 6 months left, probably less. And I couldn't die knowing that your father's sacrifice meant nothing. Someone had to finish what we started." Michael felt tears burning in his eyes. "You should have told me sooner. We could have worked together. We could have." "No," Vincent interrupted. "If I'd involved you 2 years ago, you'd be dead now. Brennan has been watching you, just like he watched all the other jurors' families. The only reason you're safe is because you didn't know anything. You weren't a threat. But I'm a threat now." "Yes, and that's why we need to move quickly." Vincent pulled out a small notebook. "I've spent the last 2 years gathering more evidence. I have financial records showing Brennan paid the men who killed your father. I have testimony from someone who used to work for Meridian. They're willing to talk now. And I have proof that Brennan is planning to kill the last surviving juror, Patricia Morneau." Michael's hands clenched into fists. "When?" "Soon, maybe this week. I've been trying to warn her, but she won't answer my calls. She's too scared. She thinks everyone who contacts her about the trial is working for Brennan. We have to protect her." Vincent nodded. "That's why I needed to meet you. One person can't fight this alone. Your father understood that. He said, 'Together we're stronger. Together we can win.' He was right." Michael looked at this tired, sick old man who had sacrificed everything trying to get justice. "Why did you do all this? You didn't know my father before the trial. You didn't know any of the jurors. Why did you risk your life?" Vincent's eyes grew distant. "Because it's the right thing to do. Because I'm a cop was a cop, and cops are supposed to protect people. When I saw what Meridian did, how they killed all those jurors and got away with it, I couldn't just walk away." He paused. "And because I met your father. In our short time together, he showed me what real courage looks like. He knew the danger, but he didn't run. He said, 'My son needs to learn that some things are worth fighting for.' I couldn't let his sacrifice be forgotten." Michael wiped his eyes. "He talked about me all the time. He was so proud of you, not because you were famous. He said you were famous before any of that. He said you were famous in his heart since the day you were born." Vincent smiled sadly. "He showed me pictures from his wallet. You as a baby, you playing basketball as a kid, you with your college team. He talked about how you never gave up, how you always pushed yourself to be better. He said, 'Michael's going to change the world someday, not with basketball, but with his heart.'" Michael couldn't hold back the tears anymore. They poured down his face as he stood in that dark parking lot, listening to a dying stranger tell him things his father had said. Things he'd never known. Things he'd never get to hear from his father's own mouth. Vincent stepped closer and put a hand on Michael's shoulder. "I failed your father, Michael. I wasn't fast enough, wasn't smart enough to protect him. But I won't fail you. Together, we're going to bring Brennan down. We're going to make sure your father's death meant something." "How?" Michael asked through his tears. "You said the police won't help. The FBI won't listen. Everyone's too scared or too corrupt. We go public. We take all the evidence and give it to reporters, to television news, to newspapers. We make it so big that Brennan can't hide anymore. We force the government to investigate." Alina stepped out from where she'd been watching nearby. "That's dangerous. Once you go public, you become a target, both of you." Vincent nodded. "I know, but I'm dying anyway. And Michael," he looked at him seriously, "Michael is famous enough that Brennan can't just make him disappear. If something happens to Michael Jordan, the whole world will ask questions. That's our protection." Michael thought about his children, his mother, his family. Going public would put them all at risk, but staying silent meant his father died for nothing. It meant more innocent people would die. "I'll do it," Michael said firmly. "Whatever it takes, but first we save Patricia Morno. We make sure there are no more victims." Vincent smiled, the first real smile Michael had seen on his face. Your father would be proud. They spent the next hour sitting in Vincent's truck, going over the plan. Alina took notes on everything. Vincent gave them names of journalists he trusted, lawyers who couldn't be bought, and FBI agents who might actually help if they had enough evidence. "There's one more thing," Vincent said as they prepared to leave. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small box. "Your father gave this to me the day we met. He said, 'If anything happens to me, make sure Michael gets this.'" Michael opened the box with shaking hands. Inside was his father's watch, the one James always wore, the one that was supposedly stolen by his killers. "I found it in the evidence locker after the trial," Vincent explained. "I made sure it didn't go into storage. I've been keeping it safe all this time, waiting for the right moment to give it to you." Michael held the watch carefully as if it might break. It was a simple watch, not expensive or fancy, but it had been on his father's wrist every day. The leather band was worn smooth from years of use. On the back, Michael found an engraving he'd never noticed before. "To Dad from Michael, never give up." Michael had given this watch to his father for Christmas when he was 15. He'd saved up his own money from summer jobs to buy it. His father had cried when he opened it, saying it was the best gift he'd ever received. "He never took it off," Vincent said softly. "Even that last day, he was wearing it. He loved you so much, Michael." Michael couldn't speak. He just held the watch against his chest and cried deep, painful sobs that came from somewhere deep inside. All the grief he'd been holding back for 2 years came pouring out. Alina put her arm around him. Vincent stood nearby, his own eyes wet with tears. Finally, Michael wiped his face and put the watch on his wrist. It fit perfectly. It felt like his father was with him again, giving him strength. "Let's finish this," Michael said, his voice strong despite the tears. "For my father, for all the jurors, for everyone Meridian hurt." Vincent nodded. Together. They made plans to meet again in 2 days. Vincent would gather his last pieces of evidence. Alina would contact the journalists and lawyers, and Michael would prepare for the fight of his life, a fight not in a basketball arena but in the court of public opinion. As they drove away, Michael looked at the watch on his wrist. The hands glowed softly in the dark car. Never give up. His father's words, his father's gift, his father's legacy. Michael wouldn't give up. Not now, not ever. Vincent Caldwell had given him the truth. Now Michael Jordan would use it to get justice. Michael drove through the night, his father's watch on his wrist, feeling its weight with every movement. Alina sat in the passenger seat, making calls to her contacts, setting things in motion. The evidence box sat in the backseat like a bomb waiting to explode. When they finally reached Chicago 2 days later, Michael was exhausted but determined. He pulled into his driveway just as the sun was rising. He hadn't been home in over a week. His mother's car was parked in front of his house. "Mom," Michael said, confused. He walked inside and found Dolores sitting in his living room, worry written all across her face. "Michael Jeffrey Jordan," she said, standing up. "Where have you been? I've been calling and calling. Your assistant said you left town suddenly. I've been worried sick." Michael set down his bag and hugged his mother tight. She felt small in his arms, fragile. He'd forgotten how much she'd aged since his father died. "I'm sorry, Mom. I should have called. I was dealing with something important. Dolores pulled back and looked at him closely. What's wrong? Your eyes look so sad. What's happened? Michael took his mother's hand and led her to the couch. Mom, sit down. I need to tell you something about Dad. Over the next hour, Michael told her everything. The letter, the investigation, Vincent Caldwell, the conspiracy, the truth about how James Jordan really died. Dolores listened without interrupting. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she didn't make a sound. When Michael finished, she sat in silence for a long time. I knew, she finally whispered. Michael's heart stopped. What? I knew something was wrong. Your father received strange phone calls those last few weeks. He seemed worried, distracted. One night I woke up and found him sitting in the dark, just staring out the window. Dolores wiped her eyes. I asked him what was wrong. He said, Dolores, if something happens to me, I want you to know it wasn't an accident. I want you to tell Michael I died doing the right thing. Michael felt like he couldn't breathe. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want to believe it. When the police said it was a robbery, I wanted to believe them. It was easier than thinking someone murdered him on purpose. I'm so sorry, Michael. I should have been stronger. Michael held his mother while she cried. It's okay, Mom. It's not your fault. None of this is your fault. After a while, Dolores pulled herself together. She looked at Michael with red eyes but a firm expression. What are you going to do now? I'm going to expose them. Vincent and Alina are helping me. We're going to give all the evidence to reporters and force the government to investigate. That's dangerous. I know. They might try to hurt you. I know that too. Dolores touched Michael's face gently, the way she did when he was a little boy. Your father would be so proud of you, not because you're brave, though you are, but because you're choosing to stand up for what's right, even when it's hard. That's what he always wanted to teach you. I'm scared, Mom. Good, being scared means you understand the risk, but doing it anyway, that's courage. She squeezed his hand. I'm scared too, but I'm also proud, and I'm with you, whatever you decide. That evening, Michael's children came over for dinner. Marcus was 8 and Jasmine was 6. They ran into the house laughing and playing, not knowing their father was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. At dinner, Marcus asked, Dad, why do you keep looking at your watch? Is it new? Michael looked down at his father's watch. No, buddy, this watch is very old. It belonged to your grandfather. Grandpa James? Jasmine asked. She barely remembered him. She was only 4 when he died. Yes, Grandpa James. He was a very special man. Tell us about him, Marcus said. You never talk about him anymore. Michael felt his throat get tight. His children were right. He had stopped talking about their grandfather because it hurt too much. But maybe that was wrong. Maybe keeping his father's memory alive was the most important thing he could do. Your grandfather was the strongest man I ever knew, Michael began. Not strong like muscles, though he was strong that way too, strong in his heart. He believed in doing the right thing, even when it was hard. Like what? Jasmine asked. Michael thought carefully about how to explain it to a 6-year-old. Well, imagine you saw someone being mean to another kid at school, and everyone else was just watching, not helping. It would be scary to stand up and say, stop being mean, right? Because the mean person might turn on you. Both children nodded, but your grandfather would stand up anyway, because he believed that when you see something wrong, you have to try to fix it, even if it's scary, even if it might cost you something. Is that how he died? Marcus asked quietly. Was he standing up for someone? Michael looked at his son's serious face and made a decision. His children deserved to know the truth, an age-appropriate version at least. Yes, Michael said. Your grandfather saw some people doing something very wrong. They were hurting others. And he stood up and said, this is wrong, you have to stop. Those people got very angry at him, and that's why he died. Jasmine's eyes filled with tears. That's so sad. It is sad, sweetheart, but it's also beautiful, because your grandfather died being a hero. He died protecting people he didn't even know. That's the best kind of hero, someone who helps others even when it doesn't benefit them. Are you going to be like Grandpa? Marcus asked. The question hit Michael like a punch. He looked at his children's innocent faces and felt the weight of his choice. If he went public with the evidence, he was putting himself in danger. He was putting his family in danger. Brennan might try to hurt them. The media attention would be overwhelming. Their lives would never be normal again. But if he stayed silent, Brennan would keep killing. Patricia Morneau would die. The truth about his father would stay buried. And Michael would have to live knowing he had the power to get justice but was too afraid to use it. "Yes," Michael finally said. "I'm going to be like Grandpa. I'm going to stand up for what's right." Jasmine got up from her chair and hugged him. "I'm scared for you, Daddy." Michael held her tight. "I'm scared too, baby. But being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the right thing even though you're scared." After the children left, Michael sat alone in his living room. The house was quiet. The evidence box sat on his coffee table, waiting for him to make a final decision. Alina had arranged for him to meet with 3 major journalists tomorrow. They would listen to his story and look at the evidence. If they believed him, they would publish articles in newspapers and magazines across the country. The story would be everywhere. Vincent had contacted his source inside Meridian, a former employee who was willing to testify. Between the documents and the testimony, they had enough to force a real investigation. But once Michael took that step, there was no going back. His phone rang. It was his brother Larry. "Michael, Mom called me. She told me everything. Are you sure about this?" "No," Michael admitted. "I'm not sure about anything, but I have to try." "Dad would understand if you didn't want to risk it. He'd want you to be safe." Michael looked at the watch on his wrist. "Never give up. Dad would want me to finish what he started. I know he would." Larry was quiet for a moment. "Then I'm with you. Whatever you need, I'm here." One by one, Michael called his siblings. His sister Roslyn, his brother Dolores, his youngest brother James, who was named after their father. He told them all the truth, and every single one of them said the same thing: "We're with you." That night, Michael couldn't sleep. He walked around his house thinking about everything. He went into his home office and found an old photo album. He flipped through pictures of his father, Dad at his college graduation, Dad at his first NBA game, Dad laughing at a family barbecue. In every picture, James Jordan was smiling. He had such a kind face, such warm eyes. Looking at these photos, Michael couldn't imagine anyone wanting to hurt him, but someone had. Someone had looked at this good, kind man and decided he needed to die. Michael made his decision. He picked up his phone and called Alina. "Set up the meetings. I'm ready to talk." "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." The next morning, Michael put on a suit and tie. He looked at himself in the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. He looked older, more serious. The carefree basketball player was gone. In his place stood a man on a mission. He picked up the evidence box and walked out to his car. Alina was waiting for him. "Last chance to back out," she said gently. Michael shook his head. "No backing out. My father didn't back out when things got hard. Neither will I." They drove to downtown Chicago to the office of the first journalist. Her name was Catherine Wu, and she worked for a major newspaper. She had a reputation for taking on powerful people and not backing down. Michael walked into her office carrying the box. Catherine was a small Asian woman in her 40s with sharp, intelligent eyes. "Mr. Jordan, thank you for meeting with me. Your assistant's call was intriguing." Michael set the box on her desk. "Ms. Wu, I'm about to tell you a story that's going to sound impossible, but everything I say is backed up by evidence in this box. And when I'm done, I need you to help me bring down the people who murdered my father." Catherine leaned forward, her expression serious. "I'm listening." Michael took a deep breath and began. "My father, James Jordan, wasn't killed in a random robbery. He was murdered by a pharmaceutical company because he served on a jury that convicted them of hiding evidence that their medication killed people." As Michael told the story, Catherine's eyes grew wider. She started taking notes, asking questions, examining documents from the box. 3 hours later, Catherine sat back in her chair, pale and shaken. This is huge. If even half of this is true, it's one of the biggest corporate crime stories in decades." "It's all true," Michael said firmly. "Every word." Catherine looked at him seriously. "Mr. Jordan, if I publish this story, your life will never be the same. The media will swarm you. Meridian will come after you with every lawyer they have. You'll be questioned, investigated, possibly even threatened. Are you prepared for that?" Michael looked down at his father's watch. He thought about James Jordan sitting in that diner, listening to Vincent's warning, making the choice to stand up rather than hide. "Yes," Michael said. "I'm prepared, because my father died standing up for what was right. The least I can do is finish what he started." Catherine nodded slowly. "Then I'm in. I'll publish your story, and I'll make sure everyone knows the truth about James Jordan." Michael met with 2 more journalists that day. Both agreed to investigate and publish the story. By evening, Michael had set in motion something that couldn't be stopped. He called Vincent from his car. "It's done. The story breaks tomorrow." Vincent's voice was weak but satisfied. "Your father would be so proud, Michael. Thank you for having the courage he knew you had." Michael hung up and drove home. Tomorrow the world would know the truth. Tomorrow the fight would really begin. But tonight Michael felt something he hadn't felt in 2 years: peace. He was doing the right thing, just like his father taught him. The story broke at 6 in the morning. Michael woke up to his phone ringing nonstop. Text messages flooded in. News alerts buzzed constantly. Catherine Wu's article was on the front page of every major newspaper in America. The headline read, "Michael Jordan claims father was murdered by pharmaceutical company in conspiracy to silence JURORS." Michael sat up in bed and read the article on his phone. Catherine had done an incredible job. She laid out the entire conspiracy clearly: the trial, the murdered jurors, Vincent Caldwell's investigation, the evidence Michael had discovered. She didn't sensationalize it. She just told the truth, backed up with documents and facts. By 8 o'clock, the story was everywhere. Television news shows devoted entire segments to it. Radio hosts discussed it. Social media exploded with people sharing the article and expressing outrage. Michael's phone rang again. It was his lawyer. "Michael, I've already received 15 calls from reporters wanting interviews. What do you want me to tell them?" "Tell them I'll hold a press conference this afternoon, 3 o'clock. Alina arrived at his house an hour later. She looked exhausted but energized. "Have you seen the response? People are furious. They're demanding investigations. The #justice for James Jordan is trending worldwide." "What about Meridian? Have they responded?" Their lawyers released a statement calling the allegations baseless and defamatory. "They're threatening to sue you for slander." Michael had expected that. Let them try, we have evidence. At noon, Michael received a call from an FBI agent named Sarah Chen, the same Dr. Sarah Chen who had testified against Meridian in the original trial. "Mr. Jordan, I've been waiting years for someone to expose what Meridian did. I lost my career, my reputation, because I tried to tell the truth. If you need me to testify, I'm ready." "Thank you, Dr. Chen. That means everything." More calls came in. Other former Meridian employees who had been too scared to speak up now wanted to help. Former police officers who remembered Vincent's investigation and felt guilty for not supporting him. Even one of the original trial lawyers offered to represent Michael for free. The tide was turning. At 3 o'clock, Michael stood behind a podium in front of dozens of cameras. Reporters packed the room, shouting questions. Alina stood to his right. His mother, Dolores, stood to his left, holding his hand. Michael looked out at the sea of faces and felt his father's presence beside him. "Good afternoon," he began, his voice steady. 2 weeks ago, I received a mysterious letter. That letter led me on a journey to discover the truth about my father's death. What I found was more terrible than I could have imagined." For the next 30 minutes, Michael told the whole story. He showed documents on a screen behind him, photos of the murdered jurors, financial records showing payments to hired killers, evidence of the cover-up. He talked about Vincent Caldwell's bravery and sacrifice. "My father, James Jordan, was murdered because he stood up to corruption," Michael said, his voice breaking with emotion. "He died protecting people he never met. He died being a hero. For 2 years, I thought his death was meaningless, random. But now I know the truth. His death meant everything. He showed me what it means to have courage, to stand up for what's right even when it costs you everything." Michael paused and looked directly into the cameras. "I'm not just a basketball player. I'm a son who lost his father. I'm here today demanding justice, not just for my father, but for all the victims of Meridian Pharmaceuticals, for the 8 jurors who were murdered, for the patients who died because Meridian hid the truth about their medication. For everyone who has been hurt by corporate greed and corruption. The room erupted with questions, but Michael held up his hand. Richard Brennan, if you're watching this, I know what you did, and I'm not afraid of you. You couldn't stop my father, and you won't stop me. The press conference ended, but the battle was just beginning. Over the next 3 days, the story grew bigger. More witnesses came forward. The FBI announced they were reopening investigations into the juror deaths. The Justice Department launched an inquiry into Meridian Pharmaceuticals, but Meridian fought back hard. Their lawyers appeared on television, attacking Michael's credibility. They questioned Vincent's evidence. They claimed the whole thing was a publicity stunt. Michael Jordan is a famous athlete desperate for attention now that his career is winding down, one lawyer said on national television. He's exploiting his father's tragic death for sympathy. Michael watched the interview and felt rage burning inside him, but Alina put a hand on his shoulder. Don't respond to them. Let the evidence speak for itself. She was right. Every time Meridian attacked, more people rallied to Michael's side. The public wasn't stupid. They could see who was telling the truth. On the 5th day after the story broke, Michael received devastating news. Vincent Caldwell had collapsed. He was in the hospital, his cancer spreading rapidly. The stress of the investigation had weakened him even more. Michael rushed to the hospital in Tennessee where Vincent was being treated. He found the older man lying in a hospital bed, pale and thin, hooked up to machines. "Michael," Vincent whispered when he saw him. "You did it. You're getting justice." Michael sat beside the bed and took Vincent's hand. "We did it together. None of this would have been possible without you." "Your father, did I do right by him?" Tears streamed down Michael's face. "Yes, you honored him. You protected his memory. He would be grateful." Vincent smiled weakly. "Good, that's good." His eyes started to close, so tired. "Rest," Michael said. "I'll stay with you." Michael sat beside Vincent's bed all night. He thought about everything this stranger had sacrificed, his career, his safety, his health, all to get justice for people he barely knew. Around 3 in the morning, Vincent's breathing changed. Michael called for the nurses, but deep down he knew. Vincent Caldwell died at 3:47 a.m. with Michael holding his hand. Michael sat in that hospital room for a long time after Vincent passed. He cried for this brave man who had given everything for justice. He cried for his father. He cried for all the innocent people who had been hurt by Meridian's greed. But then he wiped his tears and made a promise to Vincent's still body. "I won't let your sacrifice be for nothing. I'll finish this. I swear." The funeral for Vincent Caldwell was held 3 days later in a small church in Tennessee. Michael paid for everything, the service, the burial, everything. Despite Vincent having no family, over 200 people attended. They were people whose lives Vincent had touched as a police officer, witnesses he had protected, former colleagues who remembered his integrity. Michael spoke at the funeral. Vincent Caldwell was the definition of a hero. He didn't wear a cape. He didn't have superpowers. But he had something more important: courage and honor. He stood up to powerful, dangerous people because it was the right thing to do. He carried my father's memory for years, never giving up on justice even when everyone else had moved on. Vincent taught me that being a champion isn't about winning games. It's about fighting for others, even when the cost is high. After the funeral, Alina pulled Michael aside. "The FBI wants to meet with us tomorrow. They've been investigating and they have news." The next day, Michael sat in an FBI office in Washington, D.C. Across from him sat 3 agents, including the lead investigator on the case. "Mr. Jordan, we've reviewed all the evidence you and Mr. Caldwell provided. We've also conducted our own investigation. I can confirm that your father's death was not a random robbery. It was a planned assassination." Michael had known this for weeks, but hearing it confirmed officially made it real in a new way. The agent continued. "We've arrested Daniel Green and Larry Demery again for questioning. Under immunity deals, they've both admitted they were hired to kill your father. They gave us the name of the middleman who paid them, a man named Marcus Webb." "Webb works for Richard Brennan," Michael said. "Worked. Webb disappeared 3 days ago. We believe Brennan had him killed to eliminate the connection to Meridian, but we found Webb's phone records before he vanished. They show multiple calls to Richard Brennan's private number in the days before your father's murder. Is that enough to arrest Brennan? The agent's face was grim. It's enough to investigate him thoroughly. We've also uncovered evidence that 7 of the other juror deaths were murders, not accidents. We're building a case, but it takes time. Meridian has powerful lawyers and political connections. How much time? Months, maybe longer. These cases are complicated. Michael felt frustration rising. More people could die while we wait. Patricia Morno is still in danger. We have her in protective custody. She's safe. That was something at least. Over the next 2 months, the legal battle intensified. Meridian's stock price plummeted as investors fled. Several executives resigned. The company faced dozens of lawsuits from families of patients who had died from diabetes. But Richard Brennan remained free, protected by expensive lawyers and legal delays. Then, on a cold January morning, Michael received a call that changed everything. "Mr. Jordan, this is Special Agent Martinez from the FBI. We've arrested Richard Brennan. We have enough evidence to charge him with conspiracy to commit murder in the deaths of 9 people, including your father." Michael could barely speak. "You're sure the charges will stick?" "We're sure. Between the evidence you provided, testimony from former Meridian employees, and phone records we uncovered, we have a solid case. Brennan is going to trial." Michael hung up and immediately called his mother. "Mom, they arrested Brennan. They're charging him with Dad's murder." Dolores started crying. "Your father can finally rest in peace." The trial of Richard Brennan began 6 months later. It was one of the biggest trials in American history. Every day, news cameras captured people lining up outside the courthouse. Michael attended every day of the trial. He sat in the front row, wearing his father's watch, making sure Brennan saw him. The prosecution laid out the entire conspiracy. They showed financial records, played recorded phone conversations, and brought witness after witness who testified about Brennan's role in the murders. Dr. Sarah Chen testified about how Meridian covered up diabenal's dangers. Former employees testified about Brennan's security operations. The hired killers testified about the middleman who paid them. The defense tried to claim Brennan was just doing his job, protecting the company from threats, but the evidence was overwhelming. After 3 months of testimony, the jury deliberated for only 2 days. Michael sat in the courtroom, holding his mother's hand as the jury foreman stood to read the verdict. On the count of conspiracy to commit murder, we find the defendant, Richard Brennan, guilty. The courtroom erupted. Michael closed his eyes and felt tears streaming down his face. Beside him, his mother sobbed. Guilty on count after count. 9 counts of conspiracy to commit murder, 1 for each victim, including James Jordan. When the judge announced the sentence, life in prison without possibility of parole, Michael looked up at the ceiling and whispered, "We did it, Dad. We got him." After the trial, Michael stood on the courthouse steps surrounded by reporters. "How do you feel about the verdict?" one asked. Michael took a moment to compose himself. "Justice has been served. My father didn't die in vain. Vincent Caldwell didn't sacrifice his life for nothing. Today we proved that no one is above the law, not corporations, not powerful executives, not anyone. Today is for every person who stood up against corruption and paid the price. Today, the good guys won." 3 days after the verdict, Michael stood at his father's grave. The morning was quiet and peaceful. Birds sang in the trees. A soft breeze rustled the leaves. It was the kind of beautiful day his father had always loved. Michael knelt down and placed fresh flowers on the headstone. "Hey, Dad, I brought Mom like you would have wanted." Dolores stood beside him, tears streaming down her face, but she was smiling. "We did it, James. Your boy got justice for you." Michael's siblings gathered around: Larry, Rosalind, Dolores, and James. They stood together as a family, finally able to properly say goodbye to the man they'd lost. "I thought your death was meaningless," Michael said to the headstone. "I thought you were just in the wrong place at the wrong time, but I was wrong, Dad. Your death meant everything. You died protecting people. You died standing up for what was right. You died as a hero." He touched the watch on his wrist. "I understand now what you were trying to teach me my whole life. Being great isn't about fame or money or championships. It's about having the courage to do the right thing, even when it's hard, even when it costs you everything." Michael stood and looked at his mother. She placed a hand on the headstone, her fingers tracing James's name. "I'm so proud of both of you," she said softly. "James, you raised a son who has your heart. And Michael, you honored your father's memory in the best way possible. You finished what he started." They stood together in silence for a long time, each lost in their own memories of James Jordan. Finally, Michael's youngest brother James spoke. "What happens now? Is it really over?" Michael thought about that question. The trial is over. Brennan is in prison, but the work isn't finished. There are still families who need help, still people suffering because of what Meridian did. That doesn't just go away. Over the next few weeks, Michael learned just how many lives had been affected by the conspiracy. Families of the murdered jurors reached out to him, grateful that the truth had finally come out. Patients who had taken diabenol and suffered heart problems contacted him, hoping for justice. Michael realized he had a responsibility to all of them. He established the James Jordan Foundation for Justice. The foundation would help families of victims who died fighting corruption. It would fund investigations into cold cases where truth had been buried by powerful people. It would support whistleblowers who risked everything to expose wrongdoing. "This is how we make sure Dad's sacrifice continues to matter," Michael explained to his family at the foundation's first meeting. "We help others stand up to corruption, just like he did." The foundation's first case was helping Patricia Morno, the last surviving juror. She had lived in fear for years, hiding from Brennan's reach. Now, with Brennan in prison, she could finally live freely. Michael visited her in California. Patricia was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes that carried years of fear and sadness. "I never thought I'd live to see justice," she told Michael as they sat in her small apartment. "I thought Brennan would find me eventually. I thought I'd die like the others." "You're safe now," Michael assured her, "and the foundation is going to help you rebuild your life. You deserve that." Patricia started crying. "Your father was such a good man. During the trial, he was always kind to everyone. He took the jury duty seriously, really listened to all the evidence. When we voted, he said, 'We have to do what's right, even if it makes powerful people angry.' He was the bravest person in that jury room." Michael's throat felt tight. "Thank you for telling me that. It means more than you know." "He talked about you all the time during breaks in the trial. He was so proud of you. He said watching you play basketball was one of the great joys of his life, but watching you grow into a good man was even better." Michael wiped his eyes. Every news story about his father made him miss him more, but also made him grateful to learn things he'd never known. 1 month after the trial ended, Michael received a package in the mail. There was no return address, just his name written in familiar handwriting. Vincent's handwriting. Michael's hands shook as he opened the package. Inside was a letter and another small box. The letter read, "Dear Michael, if you're reading this, then I've passed away, and you've succeeded in bringing Brennan to justice. I arranged for my lawyer to send you this package after my death. I want you to know that working with you these last few months was the honor of my life. You have your father's courage, his integrity, and his heart. James would be incredibly proud of the man you've become. In this box is one final thing, the last piece of the puzzle. It's a recording I made of my conversation with your father on July 20, 1993, the day we met at the diner. I've kept it safe all these years, waiting for the right moment to share it with you. Your father knew I was recording our conversation. He wanted there to be a record of what he was about to do and why. He wanted you to hear it someday. Thank you for having the courage to seek the truth. Thank you for honoring your father's memory. And thank you for being the person James always knew you would be. With respect and admiration, Vincent Caldwell. P.S. Your father's last words to me were, 'Tell Michael I love him and that everything I do to make him proud.' Mission accomplished, Michael. He would be so proud of you." Michael could barely see through his tears. He opened the small box and found a cassette tape labeled, "James Jordan, July 20, 1993. Alina came over that evening. Together, they sat in Michael's living room and played the tape on an old cassette player Michael had found in his garage. There was static at first, then Vincent's voice came through clearly. "Mr. Jordan, thank you for meeting with me. I know what I'm about to tell you will sound impossible, but everything I say is true. My name is Vincent Caldwell. I'm a former police detective." I've been investigating a series of murders connected to the Meridian Pharmaceuticals trial you served on. Then his father's voice, strong, warm, unmistakably James Jordan. Murders? What are you talking about? Michael closed his eyes, listening to his father speak. It had been so long since he'd heard that voice. Tears streamed down his face, but he didn't wipe them away. Vincent's voice continued on the tape, explaining the conspiracy. Michael heard his father asking questions, his voice growing more concerned as he understood the danger. Then came the moment that broke Michael's heart. Mr. Caldwell, if what you're saying is true, these people might come after me, after my family. That's why I'm warning you. You need to be careful. Maybe leave town for a while, change your routine, don't travel alone. I have a better idea. Let's stop them. Let's gather evidence and expose what they've done. We can't just hide while they keep killing people. Mr. Jordan, these are dangerous people. They have resources, connections. I don't care. I served on that jury because it was my civic duty. We convicted Meridian because they killed people with their lies. If I run and hide now, what was the point? What kind of example does that set for my children? There was a pause on the tape. Then Vincent said, "You understand you're putting yourself at risk." "Yes, but some things are worth the risk. My son Michael, he's going to be something special someday. Not because he plays basketball, though he's talented at that, but because he has a good heart. He works hard. He doesn't give up when things get tough." Michael sobbed, hearing his father talk about him with such love and pride. James continued, "I want him to know that his father stood for something, that when I saw injustice, I fought it, that I didn't take the easy path. I want him to learn that being a man means standing up for what's right, even when it's hard, even when it costs you something. You're a brave man, Mr. Jordan." "I'm just a man trying to do right by his family and his community. Now, tell me what you need from me. How can I help you stop these people?" The tape continued for another hour. Michael listened to his father and Vincent planning how to gather evidence, how to protect the other surviving jurors, how to expose the conspiracy. At the very end of the tape, his father said, "Vincent, if something happens to me before we finish this, if these people get to me first, I need you to do something for me. Anything. Tell Michael I love him. Tell him I'm proud of him. And tell him that everything I did to make the world better for him and his generation. Tell him that standing up for what's right is always worth it, no matter the cost." "I will, I promise." "Thank you, now let's get to work." The tape ended with a click. Michael sat in silence, crying so hard his whole body shook. Alina put her arm around him, crying too. "He knew," Michael finally said. "He knew he might die, and he did it anyway." "He did it for you," Alina said softly. "He wanted to teach you what courage looks like." Michael spent the next week listening to that tape over and over. Each time, he heard something new in his father's words. The love, the determination, the absolute certainty that doing the right thing was more important than staying safe. 5 years later, Michael sat in his office at the James Jordan Foundation headquarters. The foundation had grown beyond his wildest dreams. They had helped dozens of families get justice. They had funded investigations that exposed corruption in 3 major corporations. They had supported whistleblowers who brought down corrupt politicians. The foundation had become exactly what his father would have wanted, a force for good in the world, helping ordinary people stand up to extraordinary evil. Michael's assistant knocked on his door. "Mr. Jordan, there's someone here to see you. She says it's about your father." An elderly woman walked into Michael's office. She looked to be in her 70s, with white hair and gentle eyes. "Mr. Jordan, my name is Harriet Thompson. We met once before at my diner in North Carolina." Michael stood up quickly. "Mrs. Thompson, of course I remember you. Please sit down. Can I get you anything?" Harriet sat down, clutching a small bag in her lap. "I came because I have something that belongs to you, something your father left at my diner all those years ago." She opened the bag and pulled out a notebook. "Your father sat at my diner for 2 hours talking to that detective. While they talked, your father wrote in this notebook. After he left, I found it under his seat. I always meant to return it, but then he passed away. I kept it safe all these years, thinking maybe someday I'd find a way to get it to his family." Michael took the notebook with trembling hands. He opened it to the first page. In his father's handwriting it said, "Things to teach Michael before he's too old to listen." Michael's vision blurred with tears. He flipped through the pages. His father had written a list of life lessons, principles, values he wanted to pass on to his son. Always stand up for the little guy, even when it's inconvenient. Your word is your bond. Once you promise something, you keep that promise no matter what. Fame and money don't make you a good person. Character makes you a good person. When you see injustice, speak up. Silence helps the oppressor, never the victim. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's right despite the fear. Your legacy isn't what you accomplish for yourself. It's what you do for others. Page after page of wisdom from a father to his son. The last entry was dated July 20, 1993, the day his father met Vincent. It read, "Michael, if you're reading this, I'm probably gone, but these words will always be here for you. Remember, the measure of a man isn't in how many games he wins or how much money he makes. It's in how he treats others and whether he stands for something bigger than himself. I'm so proud of you, son, not for what you've achieved, but for who you are. Never stop being the good man I know you to be. Love always, Dad." Michael couldn't speak. He held the notebook to his chest and cried like he hadn't cried in years. Mrs. Thompson patted his hand gently. "Your father loved you so much. That was clear to anyone who met him. And from what I've read about your foundation and everything you've done, it's clear you loved him just as much." After Mrs. Thompson left, Michael sat alone with the notebook. He read every page, absorbing his father's wisdom, feeling closer to him than he had in years. He realized something profound. The mysterious letters hadn't just revealed the truth about his father's death. They had revealed the truth about his father's life, his courage, his integrity, his love. Vincent Caldwell had given Michael an incredible gift. Not just justice, but understanding. Not just closure, but connection. Michael picked up his phone and called his children. "Hey guys, can you come over tonight? I want to tell you some stories about your grandfather. I want to make sure you know what kind of man he was." That evening, Michael sat with Marcus and Jasmine, now teenagers, and read them passages from their grandfather's notebook. He told them about the conspiracy, about Vincent's sacrifice, about the trial and the victory. But most importantly, he told them about James Jordan's courage, about a man who saw injustice and refused to look away, about a father who loved his son enough to risk everything to teach him the right way to live. "Your grandfather died a hero," Michael told them. "But he lived as something even better, a good man who stood for his principles. That's his real legacy, not how he died, but how he lived." Jasmine looked at the notebook in Michael's hands. "Can I read it?" "Someday when you're older. For now, I'll share the lessons with you. And someday you'll share them with your children. That's how Grandpa's legacy continues through us, through our actions, through the values we pass on." That night after his children left, Michael walked out onto his balcony. The city lights sparkled below. The night was clear and beautiful. He looked up at the stars and spoke to his father. "Dad, I finally understand. The mysterious letters, Vincent's sacrifice, the whole journey, it wasn't just about finding out who killed you. It was about discovering who you really were. It was about learning what you stood for and why you were willing to die for it." Michael touched the watch on his wrist, the watch he never took off anymore. "I promise to carry on your legacy, not just through the foundation, but through how I live every day. I promise to stand up for what's right. I promise to help people who can't help themselves. I promise to teach your grandchildren the lessons you taught me." A shooting star streaked across the sky. Michael smiled, choosing to believe it was his father's way of saying he heard. The mystery was solved. The sender of the letters was no longer unknown. Vincent Caldwell, a dying man, had reached out to give Michael the truth. But the real mystery had never been about who sent the letters. The real mystery was understanding the depth of his father's courage, the power of his love, and the meaning of his sacrifice. And that mystery, once solved, had set Michael free. He walked back inside, picked up his father's notebook, and added his own entry on the last page. "Dad, you taught me that being a champion isn't about trophies, it's about character. You showed me that true greatness is measured by what you're willing to sacrifice for others. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your example. Thank you for being the father every son wishes they had. Your legacy lives on in me, in your grandchildren, and in every person the foundation helps. You didn't die in vain. You died a hero. And you'll be remembered forever as the man who taught his son what it really means to be great. I love you always. Michael. Michael closed the notebook and placed it next to a framed photograph of his father. In the picture, James Jordan was smiling, full of life and love. The journey that began with a mysterious letter had ended with understanding, healing, and peace. Justice had been served, truth had been revealed, and a son finally understood the gift his father had given him, not just life, but a blueprint for how to live it with purpose, courage, and integrity. Some mysteries, once solved, change everything. This one had changed Michael Jordan forever. 5 years passed like a gentle river flowing toward the sea. Michael Jordan stood at the entrance of the James Jordan Foundation's new headquarters in Chicago. The building was beautiful, modern glass and steel with his father's name carved in stone above the doors. Inside, 50 employees worked every day to help families find justice, just like Michael's family had found justice. It was a warm September morning. Michael wore his father's watch, as he did every single day. The leather band was even more worn now, but Michael would never replace it. Every scratch and mark told a story of his father's life. Today was special. Today marked the 5th anniversary of Richard Brennan's conviction. Today, the foundation was opening a new program to help children who had lost parents to corporate crime and corruption. Michael walked through the building, greeting employees. In one office, a lawyer was helping a family sue a company that had poisoned their water supply. In another, an investigator was tracking down evidence in a cold case murder. In a third, a counselor was talking to a teenager whose father had been killed after exposing fraud at his company. This was his father's legacy. This was what James Jordan had died for. Elena Martinez walked up beside him. She was now the foundation's director of investigations. Her gray hair was a little grayer, but her eyes were just as sharp. "Big day," she said with a smile. "Are you ready for the ceremony?" "As ready as I'll ever be." Outside, chairs had been set up on the lawn. Over 300 people were gathering, families the foundation had helped, donors who supported their work, journalists who had covered their cases, and politicians who had changed laws because of what the foundation exposed. Michael's family sat in the front row. His mother, Dolores, now in her 70s, looked proud and peaceful. His siblings sat with their families. And his children, Marcus, now 13, and Jasmine, now 11, sat on either side of their grandmother. Michael had spent the last 5 years not just running the foundation, but being the father his dad had taught him to be. He went to every one of Marcus's baseball games. He helped Jasmine with her homework every night. He made sure they knew they were loved, just like his father had made him feel loved. When it was time, Michael walked to the podium. The crowd grew quiet. "5 years ago, I received a mysterious letter," Michael began. "That letter changed my life forever. It led me on a journey to discover the truth about my father's death. But more than that, it led me to discover the truth about my father's life." He paused, looking at the faces in the crowd. Some were crying already. "My father, James Jordan, wasn't perfect. He was just a regular man, a husband, a father, a friend. He worked hard. He loved his family. He tried to do right by everyone he met. But when he was asked to serve on a jury, he took that responsibility seriously. And when he learned that powerful people were hurting others, he couldn't stay silent." Michael's voice grew stronger. "My father died because he stood up for what was right. He died protecting people he never met. He died showing his children what courage looks like. For a long time, I was angry about that. I thought his death was a waste, a tragedy that shouldn't have happened." He looked at his mother, who nodded encouragingly. "But I was wrong. My father's death wasn't meaningless. It sparked a movement. It exposed corruption that had been hidden for years. It brought justice to families who had been suffering in silence. And it taught me the most important lesson of my life, that being great isn't about fame or money or championships. Being great is about standing up for others, even when it costs you everything." The crowd applauded. Michael waited for them to quiet down. "This foundation exists because of my father's sacrifice and because of another hero, Vincent Caldwell. Vincent was a police detective who risked everything to expose the truth. He lost his career, his safety, and eventually his life. But he never gave up. He carried my father's memory for years, protecting evidence, gathering proof, waiting for the right moment to reveal the truth." Michael pulled out a photograph from his pocket. It was the picture of his father and Vincent at the diner, the photo that had started everything. These two men from completely different worlds came together to fight evil, a basketball player's father and a disgraced detective. They proved that anyone can be a hero. You don't need superpowers or special training. You just need courage and the willingness to act. He put the photo back in his pocket and looked directly at the young people in the audience. Today, we're launching a new scholarship program. The Jordan Caldwell Scholarship will help children who have lost parents to corporate crime and corruption. We'll pay for their education, from elementary school through college. We'll give them counseling and support. We'll make sure that tragedy doesn't destroy their futures. The crowd applauded again, louder this time. But more than money, we want to teach them what my father taught me. We want to show them that their parents died as heroes. We want them to know that standing up for what's right is always worth it, no matter the cost. Michael's voice broke slightly. My father never got to see me win more championships. He never met my children. He never saw this foundation built in his name. But I know that he's proud. Not because of what I've accomplished, but because I've tried to live by the principles he taught me. After the ceremony, people lined up to shake Michael's hand and share their stories. A woman whose husband had been killed after exposing safety violations at his factory. A teenager whose mother had died fighting pollution in their neighborhood. An elderly man whose son had been murdered for testifying against a corrupt company. Each person thanked Michael for giving them hope, for showing them that justice was possible, for proving that the powerful couldn't always escape consequences. One young boy, maybe 9 years old, tugged on Michael's sleeve. "Mr. Jordan, my dad died too. He was a whistleblower. That means he told the truth about bad people doing bad things." Michael knelt down to the boy's eye level. "What's your name?" "Tommy." "Tommy, your father was a hero. Do you know that?" Tommy nodded, his eyes wet with tears. "My mom tells me that, but kids at school say he was stupid. They say he should have just kept quiet and stayed safe." Michael's heart broke for this child. He knew exactly how Tommy felt. "Tommy, those kids are wrong. Your father wasn't stupid. He was brave. There's a big difference. Stupid people take risks for no reason. Brave people take risks for good reasons, to protect others, to fight injustice, to make the world better." "But I miss him," Tommy whispered. "I miss my father too, every single day. But you know what helps? Knowing that he died for something important, knowing that his sacrifice meant something, and trying every day to make him proud by living the way he taught me." Tommy wiped his eyes. "How do I do that?" Michael smiled. "You stand up for kids who get bullied at school. You tell the truth even when lying would be easier. You help people who need help. You work hard and treat others with kindness. That's how you honor your father's memory." Tommy hugged Michael suddenly, holding tight. Michael hugged him back, feeling tears on his own cheeks. This was why the foundation mattered, not just for justice, but for healing, for helping families move forward without forgetting, for turning tragedy into purpose. That evening, Michael's entire family gathered at his mother's house for dinner. It had become a tradition. Every year on the anniversary of Brennan's conviction, they all came together to remember James and celebrate how far they'd come. Dolores cooked her famous fried chicken just like she used to make when James was alive. The house filled with laughter and stories and love. After dinner, Michael gathered everyone in the living room. "I want to read something," he said. He pulled out his father's notebook, the one Mrs. Thompson had returned to him. He had read it hundreds of times, but he wanted to share it with his whole family. "Dad wrote this the day he met Vincent Caldwell. He knew he was putting himself in danger, but he did it anyway. And he wrote down the lessons he wanted to make sure I learned." Michael read through the list, his father's wisdom filling the room. His siblings cried. His mother smiled through her tears. His children listened carefully, learning about the grandfather they barely remembered. When Michael finished, his daughter Jasmine asked, "Dad, can I say something?" "Of course, sweetheart." Jasmine stood up, nervous but determined. "I never really knew Grandpa James. I was too little when he died. But through the foundation, through all the stories, through everything Dad has done, I feel like I know him now. And I want to be like him when I grow up." Michael's heart swelled with pride. "How do you want to be like him?" "I want to help people. I want to stand up for what's right. I don't know if I'll be a lawyer or a detective or what, but I want to fight for people who can't fight for themselves, just like Grandpa did, just like you do, Dad." Michael hugged his daughter tight. This was it. This was his father's legacy continuing through another generation. His son Marcus spoke up too. "Me too. I want to work at the foundation someday. I want to help families like Tommy's family." Michael looked at his children with tears streaming down his face. "Your grandfather would be so proud of both of you. I'm so proud of both of you." Later that night, after everyone had gone home, Michael stood in his mother's backyard under the stars. He could hear her in the kitchen cleaning up. Through the window, he watched her moving around, still strong and graceful even in her grief. His phone buzzed. It was a text from Patricia Morno, the last surviving juror. She sent a photo of herself at the beach, smiling genuinely for the first time in years. "Living my life freely now, thanks to you and your father. Forever grateful, Patricia." Michael smiled. This was what justice looked like. Not just putting bad people in prison, but freeing good people from fear, giving them their lives back. He thought about the journey that had started with a mysterious letter, the terror he'd felt reading those first words, the anger when he learned the truth, the determination to get justice, the grief when Vincent died, the triumph when Brennan was convicted. All of it had led to this moment, standing under the stars, knowing his father's sacrifice had meaning, knowing the work would continue long after Michael was gone. A shooting star streaked across the sky just like it had 5 years ago. "I see you, Dad," Michael whispered. "I hope you're proud. I hope Vincent's with you up there. I hope you both know that what you did mattered, that it still matters, that it will always matter." The back door opened. His mother came out and stood beside him. "Talking to your father?" she asked gently. "Always." They stood together in comfortable silence, looking at the stars. "He'd be so proud of you, Michael. Not just for the foundation, though that's wonderful, but for the man you've become, for the father you are, for how you've turned pain into purpose." "I learned from the best, Mom. I learned from both of you." Dolores took his hand. "The letter that started all of this, do you ever regret opening it? Do you ever wish you'd just thrown it away and never known the truth?" Michael thought about that for a long moment. "No, never. The truth was hard. The journey was painful. But knowing the truth set me free. It gave me purpose. It showed me what my father stood for and who he really was." "Vincent Caldwell gave you a great gift." "He gave us all a great gift. He didn't have to reach out. He could have died quietly, taking the secret with him. But he chose to tell the truth, even knowing it might put people in danger. That took courage." Michael looked at the watch on his wrist, glowing softly in the darkness. "Never give up," he read the engraving aloud. "That's what this watch says, and that's what I'll keep doing. I'll never give up fighting for justice. I'll never give up honoring Dad's memory. I'll never give up teaching my children what he taught me." His mother kissed his cheek. "That's all any parent can hope for, that their children will carry on their values, that their life will mean something beyond themselves. Your father got that and more." The next morning, Michael went to his father's grave. He brought Marcus and Jasmine with him. They each placed flowers on the headstone. "Grandpa," Jasmine said to the stone, "I promise to make you proud. I promise to stand up for people who need help, just like you did." Marcus added, "I promise to never forget what you taught Dad and what Dad taught us. Your legacy will keep going through us." Michael placed his hand on the headstone. "Dad, the mystery is solved. We know who sent the letters. We know why you died. We know what you stood for. And we're going to make sure the whole world never forgets James Jordan, not as Michael Jordan's father, but as a hero in his own right." As they walked back to the car, Michael felt lighter than he had in years. The weight of not knowing was gone. The burden of meaningless death had been lifted. In its place was understanding, purpose, and peace. The mysterious letters had revealed more than just the identity of a sender. They had revealed the truth about courage, sacrifice, and what it means to live a life that matters. Vincent Caldwell was no longer unknown. James Jordan's death was no longer a mystery. And Michael Jordan had become the man his father always believed he would be, not because of basketball, but because of character. Some mysteries, when solved, break your heart. Others heal it. This one had done both. And in doing so, it had changed everything. The legacy lived on. The fight continued. and the truth, once hidden, now shone like a light that could never be extinguished. Michael looked at his children walking ahead of him, already planning how they would help others, already embodying their grandfather's values. The mysterious letter had started it all, but the love, courage, and sacrifice of good people would finish it, generation after generation, forever. So now you know the truth about the mysterious letter and how Michael Jordan honored his father's legacy by standing up for justice. James Jordan didn't die in vain. He died a hero, and his son made sure the whole world knew it. We want to hear from you. Where are you watching this video from? Drop your city and country in the comments below. We love connecting with viewers from all around the world. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button. It really helps us spread these powerful stories of courage and justice to more people. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss another inspiring story. Together, we can spread kindness and share messages that matter. There's another amazing story waiting for you right now. Click on the video appearing on your screen to keep the inspiration going. Thanks for watching, and remember, always stand up for what's right, just like James Jordan taught his son.